Hi, I'm Wayne Madsen, and you're listening to the Falcons Nest podcast.
I'm Lewis Reese, and you're listening to Falcons Nest podcast.
I'm Anuj Dal, and you're listening to the Falcons Nest podcast.
Welcome back to the Falcons Nest podcast. I'm joined by Head of Cricket, Mickey Arthur. Mickey, welcome.
Thank you, Stephen. Good to be on this podcast.
It's currently winter. It's currently downtime. It's the time of year you dislike the most. There's no cricket happening. There's very little training happening. Players are back in the next couple of weeks. What does a winter look like for Mickey Arthur when you can't be coaching and when you can't be, you're in the dressing room?
It's incredibly frustrating. I've just come back from Australia. We're connected again with my daughters and family and friends, which was awesome, and something we needed to do after the back end of a long season. But this is so frustrating, just sitting here. We get guys trickling in, like we've had Nah in the nets and whatever. We all get back together as a squad on Thursday, which is great. And having the squad back is amazing. You tend to get very fond of these guys. They become like your family because you see them every day. And this month without them has seemed incredibly long. And I know, talking to all the players, they felt exactly the same, which is a good thing. So they back in. But it also, this is the time that allows me opportunities to go and do a little bit of franchise work and get some sun on the back and get that taste again of match day, which is something in the winter I really, really miss.
You speak about family there. Well, you're taking a family with you, member with you, so to speak. Nye Donald joining you for the Abu Dhabi T10. And what a fantastic opportunity it will be for him to get that global recognition, but also for yourself to see him in a different environment.
Yeah, and that's great. You do want to see your players in different environments because they're interacting with different people, interacting with a different squad and a different team, and it allows you to see how they actually adapt. And Na's generally very good at adapting in those type of environments. But I'm coaching the Adjunct Titans now in the T10, which is exciting. And I did manage to get Na into the team because I just think Na just needs a break. He needs an opportunity. He needs the rest of the world to see what we see continually every day from Na. So I'm really excited to see what he does. I'm really excited for the T10. It's a big competition now. We've got a star-studded side, but there's a lot of other teams that are star-studded as well. So I'm looking forward to that. But more importantly, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Na can do in a different environment, and it's his big chance. We see what he churns out all the time. So for him to be able to do it on a fairly big stage, hopefully paves the way for a lot more of these opportunities for him later.
And from a coaching and a head of cricket point of view, what differences are there, other than the timescale, of course, but what differences are there from being a day-to-day coach at Derbyshire to going and being in the franchise league?
It is different. I always say, because this is one thing that I get asked a lot, is what is the differences? Well, the differences are very tangible in that with Derbyshire, we're looking after our players 11 months of the year. And sure, you get players going off, we got Matters he'll have a World Cup for Italy this year, and you get players that Jack Morley's in Melbourne, etc. But basically, we're responsible for their progress and their cricket development over 11 months of the year. And when you go to a franchise, that 11 months goes out the window because you're actually only looking after them for 3 weeks or a month or whatever it is. So it allows you to come in, you try and create an environment, you try and give a little bit of structure to it, and then you let the players go and play. You've got to select your teams and you've got to kind of give a kind of game plan and structure to how you want the teams to play. But then after that, it's up to the players. You create a good environment, and ultimately at the end of a month, you've either succeeded or you haven't. And you come back to your stable environment that is Derbyshire. So if I look at it, I far prefer the stable environment. I far prefer developing players. I far prefer creating a team that can try and have sustainable success down the line. And I mean, that's what we're all trying to do. But I love being in charge of a player's development 11 months because I think you're making tangible difference to the players. Whereas in a franchise, you're not really, you know, and it doesn't stimulate me as much as coaching at Derbyshire does. But saying that, I need it in the winter because it gives me a winter stimulation.
You talk about stimulation in the winter, keeping active in the winter. One thing I know you spend a lot of the winter doing is watching football, and in particular,
love it,
Arsenal.
Yeah.
We'll get on to how they're doing this season in a moment. But firstly, how did you start supporting Arsenal?
This is a bizarre story because everybody always asks us because they think you become one of these glorified. No. I started supporting them, and I'll tell you exactly what happened. When I was growing up, and I was about 9 or 10 in South Africa, we still hadn't had television sets yet. So there were no TV sets in South Africa. So you kind of used to listen to the radio, and we used to get all the football coming out of England. But a Saturday was you listening to the radio. And then we sort of got TV when I was about 10 or 11. TV came in, and we got Match of the Day. Now, Match of the Day was a Monday night in South Africa. So as young boys, me and my mates Match of the Day became our favourite TV program, and we sat in front of that, an hour before the program started, and then watched these teams because it brought what we're listening to the radio to life. And then all my mates, we all then had teams. So all my mates were either Liverpool, Man United, and I thought, well, it's stuff that I'm gonna go against it, and I started supporting Arsenal when I was about 11. Because of the fact I wanted to be different to my mates. So we had a bit of a rivalry, and of course it's stuck ever since.
And when were you then first able to come here and watch Arsenal live?
Well, I did it in my first year. So I came out to England when I was 17. I started playing out here. In fact, I came on a cricket tour and managed to get to Highbury then, and had a walk around Highbury, and then I managed to get to an Arsenal game the following year, and then it kind of kick-started from there. But when I came and I played in Coventry. I played in the Birmingham League for Coventry and North Warwicks, and I ended up going to every Sky Blue game because Steve Grizovic opened the bowling for our cricket club when he could in his off time away from the Sky Blues. So then I sort of started watching the Sky Blues a lot. But Arsenal was always has always been the constant for me. Like right now, and people say, well, you can't support three teams. No, well, you can, because I think you have an affinity to teams, you have an affinity to the area you live in. So I've always say Arsenal is my constant. Arsenal is the one team I watch week in and week out. The Championship at the moment, of course, it's Derby County. And I go down to Derby County as much as I can. I've got a genuine interest in Derby County. And in League One, it's Burton, because it's another team this weekend I had Arsenal won, Burton won, and Derby County won. It was the perfect weekend. But and it's Burton. I've developed a bit of an affinity through Fletch with Gary Bowyer, their manager, and we swap notes and we talk a little bit, and it's great. So I've tried to have a genuine interest in football because I love it, and watching the teams go through the weekend is fun.
And then when you're watching football, are you able to watch it just as a fan, or are you still kind of analysing and watching it from a coaching point of view?
No, I'm watching it analytically. I am. I'm amazed at what Mikel Arteta's done. Every decision he makes is with Arsenal Football Club in mind. Obviously, but the depth that he's created within his squad. I read a lot. I watch a lot, and I'm trying to get down to London Colney to watch them train at St Albans, because he always seems to be ahead of the curve. So I do. Analytically, I'm watching. I listen to every manager's interviews. because I think you glean so much from the interviews. I just love it. I mean, a Saturday watching football is, I came back from Australia last week, and this weekend I did not move. It was wall-to-wall football. I watched every football game there was going, and I just love it. It's great.
Are there any other sports you follow?
Yeah, I follow every sport. Every sport. Rugby union. I mean, this week it was hard work because there was all the test matches. England were very good against Australia. South Africa smashed Japan. You had the All Blacks beating Ireland. Scotland smashing America. So there was too much going on. And then obviously we also had all the cricket from around the world. So and with the time zone, it was great for me to be able to watch Blair Tickner pick up 2 back-to-back man of the matches, and then give Caleb some jib because he got out for 28 again. I'm asking he needs to get a big score now. He's playing beautifully. So I follow everything. Sports my life.
And then talking about that, you talked about Mikel Arteta already and how impressive he has been and how every decision he has taken with the Arsenal Football Club in mind. There's been a lot of conjecture recently around the use of set pieces, around the Premier League potentially being more direct than it has been in, for a decade. Is that just a case in your mind of cycles being repeated? Teams get too used to playing against, possession football, so they start trying something else. Is it just maximising set pieces because it's a viable way of scoring? How do you view the Premier League at the moment?
Well, I think it's the best league in the world. I mean, it's incredibly entertaining. The quality on display is amazing. I went down to just before I went to Australia. Actually, I went and watched Arsenal Man City at the Emirates. I was amazed by the pace that those guys have. You watch the pace and power of Haaland. You watch Gabriel and Saliba close up. Doku, his pace was incredible. Martinelli, and it's things you don't kind of see on TV. So it is a wonderful, wonderful league. In football, like in any sport, you get trends. So there's trends, and I remember coaching South Africa ages ago, and we decided that we were, everybody, there was the power player and the finishing overs. And I'm talking about 50-over cricket. So you had the power plays, and everybody was getting at that point about 40 in the power play, 40 or 45. We used to target it at 45. Amazing how times have changed. But we used to target 45, and we used to think we're going to get 70 or 80 at the back end. And every team generally did that. So we came up with this radical plan at that point to really attack the last 10 overs of the second power play, if you like. So we we'd get ourselves in a position from overs 10 to 25. We'd get ourselves consolidated and then go hard from overs 25 to 40. And if it was going well, you just continue to go hard. And that got us to number 1 in the world. So why I'm saying that is because I think trends develop and everybody develops these trends. So suddenly Arsenal last year, Nicholas Jova comes in and they become incredible at set pieces. Well, everybody now wants to be incredible at set pieces. So the game changed, so it becomes more direct. We're seeing the long throw-ins now because it creates chaos in the box and it's tough to defend against. It's a way of winning games. So I think it's just evolution. I don't call it, but there's no such thing as boring. If you're winning, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. I sit and I hear all the pundits carrying on now about Arsenal. It's boring football. Well, it's boring because nobody scores against us at the moment. So our defence is very, very good. And they say we're set-piece king. Well, I don't care. If we're winning 1-0, 2-0, and we're taking 3 points home and we're sitting at the top of the table, I don't care how we're doing it. We're doing it. And the one thing I have seen with Arteta is how structured he is around that stuff. He's getting every little bit of help that he can in terms of getting a positive result. And that's all we want as coaches. It's anything that you can do to get a positive result at the end of the day, you do. And there's trends in cricket that I sit in my office here in the winter when I come back, looking at different ways that we can play the game. Now, cricket is, you can't. I mean, top of off stump is still on the top of off stump, and using your bouncer, using your yorker, those are all skills that you get better at. But I'm looking at different ways, do we bring in our tail enders open the batting when the wicket's green, and they get the shine off the ball, and we leave our major batters to play at the back end? Do we just send guys in that just keep smashing it in 2020 cricket, and do we risk being bowled out for 70 to potentially get 240? I don't know. These are things I try and toss up in my head all the time. And football coaches are doing exactly the same. You're looking for that competitive edge. You're looking to be that person that takes the trend on another curve, and then hopefully everybody follows, and then you've got to do something different again.
And we're currently sat here at the start of November. There's a long way to go in the Premier League season, Vicky. But
100% there is.
If you were to say right now, are Arsenal going to win the Premier League, what would your answer be?
Yes, because I think they're structured. I think they're organised. I think they have depth in their squad. I think they've got an incredible manager. So yeah, I do think they're going to win it right now. But am I realistic enough to know that a lot can happen? 100% I am. And there's a lot of teams that are just hovering. Man City are starting to look really, really good again. Liverpool are going to come at some point. The sleeping giant, Man United, are starting to play some decent football. Your boys, Villa, I don't think Sunderland and Palace and teams like that can sustain it. But those big teams are going to come, and you just can't afford to slip up. But if you ask me right now, I think Arsenal are the best team in November at the moment.
Okay. And lastly, just on football, you mentioned Derby County, you mentioned also following Burton Albion. I know you often chat with colleagues downstairs of their teams, Chesterfield, Oldham. Yeah. The English domestic structure in football is so strong at all levels. You've been around the world. You've watched football around the world.
Yeah.
How does what you see in the 4 divisions in the Football League compare to what you've seen elsewhere?
It's incredible. I did not realise until I started living in England how a part of the fabric football is. And it's amazing how we talk about your Tom Chesterfield and Henry's Oldham and you Villa and Dan's Forest and the tribalism and the chat around football is just amazing. It's just so good. You can't beat this anywhere in the world. I think about, I'm a massive Freo Dockers fan in AFL, the Australian Football League, and there's tribalism around that, but there's 22 teams. Where England, there's 4 divisions and some in terms of teams to follow. And I go down and watch Derby County. There's 30,000 there every time. It's an amazing vibe. It's an amazing atmosphere, and it's something that sometimes in England you forget how good it is. Sometimes the English guys take it for granted. It's a gem. It's the fundamental connection that people in England have, and it shouldn't be forgotten.
We'll move on to international cricket because we can't sit here speaking to you.
I could talk football forever.
I know, but you are very passionate about international cricket. You have great memories in international cricket. I want to speak to you about analysis at the highest level, and the reason I want to talk about it is I have a memory about 3 years ago now when Mohammed Amir first signed for the club. He came down for a training session it was around September, just to meet the players. And I can remember just after I'd interviewed him, you had a conversation with him and you were talking about how in the Champions Trophy final, you had instructed him how to get Rohit Sharma out. And it was the fact that Sharma walked across his stumps early on, and you knew that if you had a couple outside off stump, the third one coming back in would pin him, and Amir was able to execute it. Yeah. Now, you've been around the international game a long time. So I suppose the 2 questions I have. Firstly, how early did you embrace analysis. And then what goes into analysing players at the top level, and how deep does it go in terms of, are you watching them at franchise level, or are you only watching them at international level?
It's a very interesting question, this, because I've wrestled with it in my mind. And I've been very pro it, and then I've come off an analysis a little bit. It depends on the players and how they can execute. I think analysis, and when I started with South Africa, it was nowhere near the levels it is at now. I think it's a fundamental part of preparation. Sitting down, analysing opposition, analysing ways of getting it out, analysing weak areas. Certainly with bowling, you're analysing what slow balls they have. Is it an off cutter? Is it a back of the hand? Is it a knuckleball? Whatever it is, and then you're giving these little pockets of information out. Now there's a lot of players. So let me take you through a week with an international team. So leading up to, let's say, a test match started on the Friday. The Monday we'd get everybody together, and it would be a lightish session. Tuesday would be a big session. Wednesday would be a big session. Thursday is optional, and you go ahead on Friday. Now in that optional day and leading through those two big training sessions, you're dropping nuggets of information into your players. Some players love it, some players hate it. And you've got to know who embraces it, and you can't try and get some guys to embrace it if they don't like it, because their focus is more on their own game. But we would have sat as a management team on the Monday and gone through reams of footage and reams of information on opposition player, and then decided how much of it do we drip feed. So we'd send out a stats pack, which would have all the fundamental points on, which instead of sitting in a meeting where you're sitting going through stuff, that's delivered now straight to their electronic devices. They can sit and look at it in their own time. And then those little bits of nuggets. So when we're training on the Wednesday, I would go back to Amir or whoever it was and go, right, Rohit Sharma, we need to get him coming across the crease. His head tends to go to off stump. Let's drag it, and then swing it back, hit him on the pad. So that's the kind of preparation. And then Amir would go and prepare for that. So he would, instead of him bowling at Baba Azam, he's thinking in his mind, I'm bowling at Rohit Sharma. So he's trying to get his skills right to come to whatever game it might be. And you know, it looks great when it works. There's a lot of time it doesn't work. But as the head coach, I've got to know how much I drip to every player and how much we don't. There's some players that love it and will come and sit with they'll go and sit with the analyst in his room and run through reams of stuff. And there's some guys who actually don't even bother. And you can't make it compulsory. It's on a need to have basis. But as a setup, you have to offer that to your players, because it could be the difference. And we did see with Amir. I mean, that first over he bowled, we knew, and he executed it beautifully. Bang, middle of the pad to Rohit Sharma. He's then gone across Virat Kohli. He's nicked it, dropped. And then the next one, he went across again and he's trying to work at leg stump, leading edge. And then Shikhar Dhawan, we knew, take it away on off stump, take it away. He has got lazy hands. He went at one and nicked it, and suddenly they're 12 for 3 or whatever it was, and we're on the way to winning the Champions Trophy. So that's not lovely when it works. I mean, there's a lot of time it doesn't. But I think if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. And part of your preparation is definitely analysing your opposition.
Yeah, and on that you mentioned how it sometimes doesn't work. Are there moments when you're sat, you know, in the dressing room and you've prepared for something and you know there's a certain point in an innings or, you know, a bowling spell where you think if a certain moment hasn't happened at that point, there's alarm bells ringing? Yeah,
100%. It generally, and depending on the quality of the player you're playing, you bowl against Joe Root, for instance. if you haven't knocked Joe Root over in his first 20 balls, you're under the pump, because you can't afford quality batsmen to get in. So you have to be on the money. I always say your first ball has to be on the money and has to test them, because you've only got a small window to knock over quality players, because if you don't, they'll get in and then they hurt you. So it does get frustrating when I watch us from the dressing room going off plot, off plan, because I know we've only got a certain amount of time to nail it. And that's sometimes when you are asking the bowler to commit to his best ball, but the play might be at that particular time to bowl him a bouncer. And then when you see that not happening, you think, geez, that might be an opportunity missed. It does get frustrating, hence the odd blow up in the dressing room now and again.
And another element of, particularly at the very highest level, that fascinates me is youth development, because at a full-time club, you've got a youth academy, players are in all the time, they're working through the system. I'm sure you and Darren Smith are having constant chats. But at international level, firstly, how does it work in terms of you being tipped off about young players who are promising? And then when you go to look at them, let's say Babar Azam for the first time. Let's say you go and watch Babar Azam in the nets for the very first time. What are you looking for? What is it that gives you the spark of that player is different from another decent batter?
That's a really good example, which I'll take you through. But just on that, certainly here at Derbyshire, there is a very, very good synergy between our pathway and our professional arm. Darren sits in on all our meetings. I know all the young players. Darren knows what we want. So it's a very, very healthy setup. And our pathway is producing some very, very good players now, which is very pleasing, because ultimately you want to produce homegrown players. In international cricket, you're generally tipped off by the media. So you would know who was the best, particularly in the subcontinent, where, to be brutally honest, it's chaos. There is no massive structure. What you have is the under-19 side, and that's about it. So I remember Babar Azam, for instance, and this is a really good case in point. I remember sitting there. I'd just arrived in. We were preparing to go, and my first tour was 2016, was the tour, we were coming for a test tour to England, the Misbah push-up test tour. We drew a 2-2. That was my first tour with Pakistan. And I was sitting having lunch, and Grant Flower came running in, who's the batting coach. He said, "You've got to come and have a look at this boy." And Baba was in the indoor school, just having a hit. And I went and I said to Grant, "Yeah, well, what's special about him?" He said, just watch. And I watched Baba for 10 minutes. And I went back and phoned the convener of the selectors and said, "This boy plays for Pakistan. He's on every tour that we go on." And the thing that impressed me so much with Baba was his hands. Batting is about hands. You talk about weight through the ball and all that. Baba had these incredible hands. The sound of the ball hitting the bat was different to any other batsman. And it's crazy, because the hallmarks of good players are the sound off the bat. You listen to Joe Root hit the ball, Babar Azam hit the ball, Virat Kohli hit the ball. It sounds different. Baba had that. And we took him, we couldn't get him onto that test tour at that time because he hadn't been selected, but we brought him out for the one-day portion at the back end, and that's where he started playing. And then I had a pact that Baba is going to play every game, and we're going to develop this young player. And the rest's history. But the thing that it was your eyes. My eyes said to me that this guy's special. He had time. He wasn't rushed at all, and he had unbelievable hands. Yes, he was a little bit loose around the edges, and he needed a little bit of, he was a rough diamond that needed a lot of polishing. But we just gave him that opportunity, and we talk about it. I talk a lot to Bob about that now, and one wonders you know, if there was another coach there, and I'm not saying it because it was me. I'm saying it because if there wasn't another coach that didn't have that opportunity at that particular time to see Baba, and wasn't impressed by it, and didn't have the conviction to go back and tell the convener selectors that he's coming on every tour, he might have just got lost. You know, well, not got lost. He would have come about at some point. But I think he felt secure in the environment because he knew he had my backing. And then watching him play was one of the true delights of my coaching career.
That's a batter. Then you talk about hands and the timing of the ball,
Timing
the side of the ball,
and time. He's not rushed.
So for a young bowler, what are the qualities you're looking for?
The qualities I'm looking for with a bowler is a control of line and length. That's vitally important because, you know, cricket's changed massively, and the game has changed. The tempo of the game's changed. I'll tell you one thing that's constant is off stump remains off stump. That can never change. So you try and find somebody that can constantly challenge that off stump, and that's the one thing that really impresses me with young Harry Moore. I haven't seen a bowler as young have a control of length that good. Harry Moore's control of length is incredible, and that was the thing that really stuck with me when we gave him his opportunity and I first saw him, was control of length. And then with his height, he gets a little bit of extra bounce. So if he's there and thereabouts on that off stump all the time, well then he's challenging the outside edge. So that's something I look for, is control of line, control of length. And then you're also looking for something different. You're looking for something that can be different. Like, it's easier to explain with spin. You know, has he got an X factor? We saw Mohammad Ghazanfar here last year. There's X factor there massively. He's got all these different balls. I remember young Wanindu Hasaranga, another one I picked coming into the Sri Lankan side. And you expected every ball to be a wicket. Shadab Khan, exactly the same. As bowlers, they had something that they did differently that other bowlers couldn't do. And that, of course, is something that you look for as well.
And we'll move on now to the Women's World Cup. I saw that you tweeted your support for South Africa. Fantastic semi-final performance from them. Unfortunately, unable to see it through to the final. India win on home soil. You have worked a bit more in the women's game this year than maybe you had done in the past. You were part of Northern Superchargers that covered the men's and women's team in the 100, and you've been watching the World Cup. From your perspective, how much is the women's game growing, and how much is the quality improving?
It's grown massively, and you know, I'll be brutally honest that with the Northern Superchargers and working with Lisa Cartley, who was a fantastic coach, but watching, you know, I immersed myself as director of cricket for Superchargers in both teams. Yeah. So I'd go down and be at all their training sessions, and I was blown away by the skill levels of some of the players. Phoebe Litchfield, you know, her ability to hit the ball both sides of the wicket. Annabelle Sutherland's professionalism. Davina Perrin. I mean, she's a gem. And I watched that. You know, Kate Cross was brilliant. Lindsay Smith, and so I grew and got a real affinity with it. So then that really pricked my interest. We did exceptionally well and ended up winning the 100. And then watching those players progress into the international teams has really pricked my interest. And I thought what this 50 over World Cup has done for the women's game is immense. You know, for India you couldn't have scripted better. Navi Mumbai, full crowd, for India to win it, and you just boggle at how the women's game is going to escalate now. But I did enjoy watching it. I mean, Laura Wolfart, hundreds in the semi-final, 100 in the final, under pressure. There were some phenomenal performances, and it was a joy to watch. And I do think it's become a very, very good product now.
And then we go from one major global tournament to a major series. The Ashes is coming up, the men's Ashes. If you were to nail your colours to a mast right now, who do you think will win and why?
You know, I think England could win this. I really do. The reason I say it is I think they got a lot of match winners. I think the wickets in Australia are generally very good. I think Australia's top order is not as shut down as it used to be. You know, I remember touring Australia with South Africa, and it was Hayden, Langer, Ponting. It didn't matter who batted 4 and 5 because you never got to them. Whereas now, there's Khawaja, who's going to open with them. Marnus, who's played beautifully domestically, but is he going to bat 3? You know, does Marnus open? I think there's a lot of question marks around Australia. Pat Cummins not playing certainly the first test. Is he going to be undercooked for test 2? Is he going to play test 2? I think Australia have a lot of questions. I think England is a lot more settled side, and I think England have a lot of match winners. And I think if they can keep Jofra Archer and Wood fit, I think England have a real chance.